Africans, do you remember there was a video that circulated about a year ago with President Akufo Addo of Ghana with the French president when he said Africa must chart its own course, that we cannot continue to depend on the scraps from the foreign governments? You remember that? Africa needs to chart its own course. Where are we about a year from that time? What has he done from that time? When a leader comes up with a great idea, people look to that person, that he has something. Because generally, when God gives a revelation to a person, generally they give them the power, they give them all the resources as a packet in their mind, so they are sure what to do to free themselves, to free their people. And recently we heard that President Akufo Addo got a $2 billion loan from the Chinese. What is going on, guys? Hasn't he been reading the stories? I want to say to President Akufo Addo, President, there are ways that we can get capital. You don't need this sellout capital from China. China, they come smiling, they come with this friend thing, but their methods are bad for Africa. They don't have values. They don't respect and honor the African people. There was a museum where they compared Africans to animals. These people are bad. Every country where they have stepped, their history is a bad story on Africa. It's a condescension on the African people. We need to move away from that. We can create our own capital map. In fact, I've created a capital map. If you want money to run your country, we can come in and we can show you how to create a fund for yourself. Your nation with $20 billion to start with, or $30 billion to start with, to be a prototype, one of the prototypes of the modernization of Africa. The freedom of Africa started in Ghana. And Ghana cannot have a history of this imperial colonization by the Chinese. It needs to be the place of the freedom, it was the source of the freedom, the total liberation of the African people. Africa has reached its true realism. In other words, we can do Africa by ourselves. In about 50 years, they say Africa is going to have 3 billion people. We can't have the Chinese starting industries for us because of that 300 billion people. We need to start our own industries. We need to start fast. We don't have time. You need to understand what happens in an interval of time. In the interval of 40 years, China has uplifted itself. In the next interval of time of 40 years, which is what takes for a third world country to reach to a first world country. That's what it takes. And African countries in parallel can all rise. And in 40 years, all the African countries will be first world. But we need our resources. We need to have our own capital map, which I have designed. We need a bridge for us to take us from where we are to where we need, which you have designed a vision of of Africa, a $50 trillion nation in 50 years. It is possible. The math says that. I've studied the math of the progression of a nation from an underdeveloped nation to a first world nation. The math is the same, and we can do it. Mathematics started in Africa, so I designed this bridge that will take us there. That's led by a vision, and these columns, the means. You can't get a vision and try to drive it without the means, which is the nemesis of all the African countries to get adequate capital for modernization. What we need is modernization. What we need is industrialization. There's no plan at the Africa Union. We have the agenda, the aspirations, but there's no economic means to drive it. Only an economic plan, only an economic vision. whoever is the power. And we can do that ourselves. We've reached our true realism. We can drive our own destiny. There are trillions of dollars in the world that we can bring in. There's equity. This colonization, we have equity with these Western nations. They need to put some money on the table for reactivating Africa. The Chinese have created this system of finance from the Western countries, and they're setting that so that they can come with that capital that has come from the West and come with it to Africa. We can get that capital ourselves. They want to divide us between the Western people. We have equity with the Western people. They need to help us, to work with us to fix Africa. And they have the capital. China does not have the capital. China is taking money from us through mines and bringing back that money. How dumb can a people become? That's what we need to stop. I created a map with adequate capital because the capital is there. There are trillions of dollars. And these former colonists and these slave owners, what they did, they took 40 million people. We can't just let go of that. They have to pay for it. And they enslaved our nation. I mean, they colonized our nation. They have to pay for it. It's not going to go away free like that. But we need a leader. You need to rise up. I can get you the $2 billion that you need. I can get you $10 billion. I can get it for you. Because I'm a transformational scientist. A scientist does what science says. But we need a leader. You need to lead this African revolution from a political revolution to a total economic revolution. You need to move Africa from the political state to an economic state that says Africa is a business. The Chinese look at China as a business. President Akufo-Addo, go back to your philosophy. Go back to your idea. Go back to your conviction. What you never do, and what I advise my kids and my friends to never do, is to second guess yourself. You have second guessed yourself, and it will get you into trouble, to get your nation into trouble with China. It's time for us to launch the fast-track modernization Africa in 2020. It's time to press the reset button for Africa to start afresh under African ideas and African conditions. We need our minerals for the fast-track, rapid, parallel modernization of African countries together. But we need to unite industrially, not politically, industrially, for the purpose of driving the economy of Africa, for the purpose that in 50 years, Africa will be a leading economy with a $50 trillion nominal GDP, because we will have the biggest market. But that's what the Western countries, that's what the Chinese countries want. They want to take everything. You got to rise up, President Akufo-Addo. Stop that Chinese enslavement of that $2 billion. And I'll put $2 billion on the table for you. My name is Hannington Mbaewa. I'm the transformational rapid modernization architect of Africa, to be launched on the 1st of July, 2020.